What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC Fight Night happening in Stockholm, Sweden this Saturday. Actually going to happen pretty early that day, and when we look at the entire card, in my opinion, it's actually a decent card. Some fun fights, some good prospects from Europe, and we have a triple light heavyweight headliner going on here. And those are the fights we'll be covering for this prediction video. So we're going to start with Jimmy Manuwa versus Alexander Rakic. Right off the bat, we know this fight is not going to go to a decision at all. Two finishers, two knockout artists. One a bit more crafty in Manuwa, and the other in Rakic, who sometimes will chase a finish and swing wildly to get that knockout, and chaos will pursue afterward. I see this fight being very similar to Jimmy Manuwa's fight with Thiago Santos, but not as crazy, not as action-packed, a little bit more contained. And I think Manuwa will learn from that past experience and show his own experience against Rakic in this fight. Now, both fighters are pretty good Muay Thai fighters. Manuwa likes to attack a lot more with his hands, whereas Rakic attacks a lot with his kicks and moves around a lot. So it's the plotter, power puncher versus the moving kicker. So that automatically puts it as, if it stays on the outside, I have Rakic having the advantage. If it gets in close or even mid-distance, I have Manuwa having the advantage. And Manuwa has more firepower in his punches. He also has pretty quick kicks. And with his punches, it's not just power, it's the form. For an example, that's why his left hook is probably the most effective and powerful left hook in MMA history. And there's a scary thing about that punch meeting the style of Rakic. And that is when you saw Rakic's last fight with Devin Clark. He's a mover, right? He likes to always get in and out and move laterally if he starts to get pressured. Well, when Devin Clark pressured him a little bit, Rakic moved out to his right and ran right into a left hook and got dropped. If the same thing happens, which Manuwa was actually able to do to Corey Anderson, the exact same thing, I don't think Rakic is going to be able to survive Manuwa's left hook. He was able to survive Clark's, who isn't a knockout artist at all. Manuwa's is a different case here. And that also brings another thing. Rakic is not that great with defense in the pocket or even mid-distance. And I think Manuwa might be able to connect with a few shots in there. So that comes to my prediction. I have Jimmy Manuwa winning the fight. I have him knocking out Rakic early in the second round. After making the first round a little bit slow, not getting caught by anything crazy, eventually finds that opening after noticing some of the exits from Rakic, and then eventually pressuring Rakic into one of his hooks to end the show. And then we go to the co-main event, Volkan Oezdemir versus Ilir Latifi. Out of the highest profile fights on this card, I think this is by far the most competitive. You got Volkan Oezdemir, who I believe is going to be the better striker out there, more technical, mixes up the game pretty well like he did against Anthony Smith, very good in the clinch, decent outside, and that's going to be extremely interesting when he fights a guy like Ilir Latifi, who's a powerhouse all over. From his takedowns, to his submissions, to his kicks, to his punches, to his knees, to his elbows, to his clinch work. I mean, this guy represents power in there. He's only like, what, 5'10"? They say 5'10". I think he's a little bit shorter than that. But the thing that is interesting is Volkan Oezdemir does his best work in the clinch, right? He's caused 2 knockouts because of it due to his dirty boxing. His positioning is great in there as well, and his control. He's very strong in that position. But how does he do against Ilir Latifi, who wants to be in that close range? If it stays on the outside, I believe Volkan can throw some shots, throw some kicks out there to get Latifi guessing. Latifi is, of course, going to have the blitzing style to get in on Volkan and eventually land a big shot. But Volkan does have an amazing chin. But as soon as it gets in the clinch, that's really where the fight's going to get intriguing. Now, Volkan doesn't have the greatest takedown defense. We saw Daniel Cormier take him down pretty much at will. Of course, it's Daniel Cormier, but Ilir Latifi is also a very good wrestler. Very strong wrestler. So I think Latifi is going to be able to get this to the ground. Can Volkan get up? It's going to be interesting. Ilir Latifi also has better submissions, a way better BJJ game, and his strongman submissions are beyond strongman. I mean, look what he did to Cyril Diabate, or what he did to OSP. I mean, he just yanks on people's necks and cranks it as hard as he can. So I believe if it gets to the ground, Latifi should win this fight. But if it stays on the feet from a distance, and Volkan can be a little bit more technical and get Latifi tired, because Latifi is not the most efficient at managing his gas tank. If he can get Latifi past that first round, Oezdemir's chances of winning this fight gradually increase throughout the entire fight. So that leads to my prediction here. Such a hard fight to call. It can go either way, man. There's really no crazy prediction for this one, I believe. My gut feeling is saying Ilir Latifi for some reason. Even his last fight with Corey Anderson, I mean, Latifi has all the tools to be a top contender in this division, but his fight IQ is just not all there. I mean, he makes some questionable decisions. He explodes too much sometimes where he doesn't need to. And I believe if he just picks his blitz, doesn't blitz all the time, but picks them intelligently, I think he should win this fight. Yeah, I'm going to go with Ilir Latifi in this one. I know I trust his decision making too much, and that's the thing that always holds him back. But I believe in this fight, rather than the Corey Anderson fight, he actually has a wrestling game he can go to, right? In the Corey Anderson fight, it was hard to get Anderson to the ground. Oezdemir is not that kind of a wrestler, and Latifi has different options in this fight. He doesn't just have a blitzing, try to knock this guy out kind of thing that he went into the Corey Anderson fight with. So I'm going to go with Latifi, and I'm going to go by a decision. I think Oezdemir is just way too tough, too good of a chin to get knocked out there. And I think he's been working on his BJJ so much because it has been a weaker point in his career that he probably won't get submitted by Latifi. And then we go to the main event. Alexander Gustafsson versus Anthony Smith. Initially, when I look at it on paper, Gustafsson has a major advantage. Everywhere. He's a better wrestler. I don't know where the BJJ stacks up with Smith. Smith has a lot more submissions, but Gustafsson has never really been in danger as of late. The only time he was ever in danger with any kind of submission was against Phil Davis, but ever since he trained with Phil Davis after that fight, he's been a different kind of wrestler, different kind of grappler. And when it comes to the striking, he's a lot more polished, especially with his hands and his footwork. Smith, I believe, will probably have better kicks and elbows in the clinch and maybe knees, but that's pretty much it. I don't really see it staying in the clinch at all because Smith doesn't really pressure opponents too much. He doesn't move too much. I think Gustafsson has a style in this fight to really dictate where the fight goes and how it plays out. The only thing about Smith is you can never count the guy out because of how dangerous he is in every position and his heart. I mean, they call him Lionheart for a reason. I understand with Jon Jones, he didn't really show that side of him at all, but usually you do see that kind of thing out of Anthony Smith. When you hurt him or you think he's out of there, he just pulls it off somehow. But another thing is, Anthony Smith is a very fast light heavyweight, right? He's coming up from middleweight. He's a big guy. I mean, he's not a small light heavyweight, but he's fast for this division. He has fast hands. I don't think as fast as Gustafsson, but I do believe he has more one-shot knockout power than Gustafsson. And the speed that comes with that is going to be pretty dangerous. If it gets in the clinch, that's where I think Anthony Smith is going to have somewhat of an advantage, but I just don't think he can get there. But also, Gustafsson can start taking down Smith if it gets dicey on the feet, but the boxing of Gustafsson is so high level, man. I just don't see how Smith is going to get past that. If there is one weakness to Gustafsson that we saw in his last fight with Jon Jones, it is leg kicks. And Smith can possibly go to that, right? So if you start kicking Gustafsson's legs, slow down his movement, hurt his boxing because of that, it could start opening up some options for Anthony Smith. But my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Alexander Gustafsson. Like I said before, he has an advantage almost every single area when it comes to fighting. The only way I can see Anthony Smith really winning this is if Gustafsson makes a drastic mistake, maybe stays in the pocket too long, maybe chases the finish, maybe continues his combinations for far too long, to the point where Anthony Smith fires back with more firepower and catches Gustafsson. But that's the other thing. Gustafsson has an insanely good chin. I mean, you rarely will ever see this guy get rocked. So I'm going to go with Gustafsson, and I'm going to go by a 4th round TKO. I think there's going to be a lot of damage from Gustafsson's side, to the point where Smith is showing his heart. But Gus shows a lot more fight IQ, knows where to be, not to get caught, and eventually just TKOs him because of the cumulative damage. So that leads us to the rest of the fights. But yeah, I know a lot of people are very curious about the Makwan Murakami versus Chris Fishgold fight. That is probably the most competitive fight in the entire card. Both aren't doing too well in the UFC as of late. Amir Khani has been boxing, trying to fix that part of his game. Fishgold had a pretty nice win in his last fight against Daniel Tamer, but a lot of scrambles that he shouldn't have been getting to in that fight with a kickboxer. So that should be a pretty interesting fight. And some fighters to really look out for are going to be Damir Hadzovic, Sungbin Jo, and Darko Stosic. Pretty interesting prospects they're putting on this card. I do believe Tanya Evinger is most likely going to dominate Lena Landsberg due to her grappling, due to her grit and aggression. And Leonardo Santos is making a 2.5-year comeback. Almost a 3-year comeback against Stevie Ray, and even though Leonardo Santos seems to be more skilled, especially when it comes to the ground, even his striking is not that bad, how is he going to deal with the layoff? Right, against Stevie Ray, who fought at the end of last year. So that is going to be interesting, but I have a feeling maybe Leonardo Santos is not going to come back the same, which is why I'm going with Stevie Ray by a very small margin. And now let's look at the betting odds to see if there's anything interesting. Wow, a lot of the betting odds are actually very close. The one I really look at is Jimmy Manuwa being that big of an underdog. I think people are really counting him out because Rakic has been known to be somewhat of a prospect that people have been looking at, and people thought he was going to steamroll Devin Clark, and he got in a lot of trouble in that fight against a guy who doesn't really finish too many fights. He almost finished Rakic in that one, but made a big mistake just rushing him and getting caught by a back fist, who possibly didn't even mean to knock out Devin Clark with that shot. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they're all so close. I mean, Stevie Ray, I think, has a good shot at beating Leonardo Santos. That's another interesting one, but all of them are pretty close. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. My next video is probably going to be the podcast, or it might be the MMA prospects video, because I'm like 50% done with the prospects video. I think you guys are really going to have fun with that one. So be on the lookout for those. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.